The diplomatic frigate Aurelian path cut through the void like a blade dipped in morning frost, its gold-trimmed hull humming with restrained power as it approached the orbit of Senderos Prime. No escort, no announcements, no threats. Just a single Terran vessel following a flight pattern so calm and steady it felt like an insult to the entire Galactic Council waiting below. Inside its central walkway stood Elias Ward, Earth's appointed envoy, though the word diplomat had never quite fit him. His shoulders remained perfectly square beneath a dark navy overcoat reinforced with discreet armor plating. His breathing stayed even, almost meditative, but the tension behind his eyes betrayed a storm he refused to show. The scars along his knuckles were faded, yet visible, souvenirs from a life he rarely spoke about. Instead, he stood still as the docking clamps latched onto the ship, his reflection staring back at him through the transparent alloy, a man who had learned long ago that feeling too much did not make him weak, it made him dangerous. The docking ramp lowered with a hiss, releasing a wave of sterile, ion-scented air. Rows of alien delegates lined the landing chamber, their eyes following Elias with a mixture of caution and concealed disdain. Council banners glowed in deep red arcs above them, broadcasting unity while hiding fractures beneath the veneer. Elias stepped forward, unarmed, his coat swaying slightly with each stride. He did not bow. He did not nod. He offered nothing but silence, letting the weight of his presence fill the room like a slow-rising tide. A Vererian attendant with crystalline skin motioned stiffly. "Envoy Ward, the Council awaits your testimony regarding the recent border skirmishes." Elias's jaw tensed, not at the words, but at the half-second tremble he detected in the attendant's voice. Fear. Not of him personally, but of the idea of Earth finally reaching its breaking point. "Lead the way," he replied softly. As he followed the crystalline attendant, Elias kept his steps measured. Each footfall reminded him of the promise he had made years ago, to walk peacefully whenever possible, to avoid escalating tensions that already smoldered across the spiral arm. But beneath that promise was another layer, darker and far more dangerous. He had sworn that no one under his protection would ever be harmed again. Not on his watch. Not while his heart still beat. They entered the vast council rotunda, a circular chamber of hovering platforms and cascading light strata that mimicked a sunrise. Delegates filled the balconies, murmuring in their native frequencies. Elias walked to the central disk, positioned alone under 3 converging spotlights. His pulse remained steady, but a heaviness settled in his chest, a quiet ache he had carried since the day he lost the people who once filled his life with warmth. He pushed the memory aside. Duty first. Emotion later. Counselor Therix, a towering amphibian figure draped in silver robes, spoke with a voice that crackled like snapping kelp. "Elias Ward of Earth, your presence is acknowledged. We hope today will be productive." Elias nodded once. "That depends on what you call productive, Counselor." Murmurs spread across the chamber. Therix shifted, clearly annoyed, but masked it behind a diplomatic smile. "We are here to seek clarity. Tensions rise within frontier systems. Your fleet movements concern us. And the unprovoked raids on human convoys don't." Elias asked, voice still calm but sharp enough to cut metal. Several delegates stiffened. Others exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity's restraint was infamous. Its retaliation was feared. Therix continued, forcing composure. "We propose cooperative investigation teams. Neutral parties from..." A shrill alarm shattered the air. Red symbols flashed across the rotunda walls. Security shields snapped up around the balconies. Dozens of armored council enforcers charged from hidden alcoves, their rifles raising in perfect synchronization, all aimed directly at Elias. Elias didn't move. Couldn't move. Not because of fear, but because of the bitter sting behind his ribs, the unmistakable sensation of betrayal. Therix's voice quivered as he barked, "Envoy Ward, you are to be detained for questioning regarding suspected covert military operations." Elias let out a slow breath. "So this was prearranged." "It is for the stability of the galaxy," Therix insisted. "No," Elias murmured, eyes narrowing. This is fear pretending it is order. The first shot rang out, a pulse bolt streaking toward him. The world slowed. Elias's coat flared as he moved, not dodging, but redirecting his body just enough for the bolt to pass inches from his ribs. His right hand snapped to the side, activating a compact grav trigger embedded in his palm. A concussive wave rippled outward, invisible but devastating. The nearest enforcers were hurled backward like ragdolls, armor sparking as they collided with the metal walls. More shots. More betrayal. Elias moved with precision born from decades of training he had tried so hard to leave behind. Every motion economical. Every pivot controlled. He deflected a stun baton, seized the attacker's arm, and slammed him into the floor with a twist that left the alien unconscious but alive. Behind him, another enforcer charged. Elias turned, eyes burning with a restrained fury. He struck once, open-handed. The blow carried a microshock delivered through his glove, dropping the attacker instantly. All around, chaos spread. Delegates fled their balconies. Shields flickered. Counselors yelled orders lost beneath the thunder of weapons fire. Elias felt his heart hammer, not out of panic, but because a familiar grief surged inside him. He hated this. Hated what violence did to people. Hated what it dragged out of him. But he would not allow himself to die here. Not on a day meant for peace. Plasma bolts streaked toward him. Elias smashed his hand against the floor, triggering the secondary grav pulse. The bolts bent midair, spiraling harmlessly into the ceiling. Gasps echoed. Fear multiplied. He rose slowly, shoulders squared, breathing controlled. Is this your diplomacy? Elias demanded, voice shaking not with weakness, but with emotion he refused to hide. Attack first, justify later? Therix was shaking now. You are too dangerous. Earth is too dangerous. Elias stepped toward him, not fast, not threatening, just undeniably resolute. Then why summon me here? Why pretend at peace only to corner me like prey? Enforcers hesitated, forming a trembling half-circle. Elias raised his hands slowly, not in surrender but in warning. Stand down, he said. Or, I promise you, this ends badly for every one of you. One enforcer panicked. Fired. Elias moved. He leapt from the central disk, intercepting 3 assailants in a single fluid arc. He landed between them, boots striking the floor with amplified force. Before they recovered, he swept a leg outward, sending 2 crashing down. The third swung a crackling electrostaff. Elias caught the shaft, twisted, and drove his elbow into the attacker's chest, folding the alien instantly. More soldiers poured from concealed lifts, dozens, their armor gleaming under chaotic lights. The number didn't matter. What mattered was the ache tightening beneath Elias's ribs, the memory of everything he had once lost. That pain anchored him, sharpened him, reminded him who he refused to become again. Restraint nets flew. Sonic blasts tore across the disk. Elias activated the microshield embedded in his sleeve, its curved barrier absorbing the impacts with a dull hum. He surged forward, striking with precision, measured, controlled, never lethal. One by one, attackers fell, scattered like broken shadows across the polished floor. Still they advanced. And as Elias steadied himself, breathing hard but unbroken, every council spectator began to grasp a single truth. They had not attacked a mere envoy. They had awakened a force carved from loss and discipline, a man who carried both mercy and devastation in equal measure, and who would not fall while injustice still drew breath around him. He refused to yield. Elias stood in the center of the shattered rotunda, chest rising and falling with slow, controlled breaths. Smoke curled from shattered panels. Stun bolts flickered across the broken floor. The council's grand chamber, once a symbol of neutrality, was now a battlefield. A battlefield they had created. And still more troops arrived. Heavy metallic footfalls echoed through the side corridors. The reinforced blast doors groaned open as a formation of elite Halion wardens marched into view. Their obsidian armor shimmered with reactive plating, helmets carved into intimidating angular visors. These weren't ordinary enforcers, they were siege units. Living battering rams. The kind used only when negotiations were meant to fail. Elias exhaled quietly. So, that's how far you're willing to go. The wardens fanned out, weapons raised. Their commander, a towering figure marked with gold plate segments, stepped forward. Elias, Ward of Earth, the mechanical voice boomed, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Failure to comply will trigger lethal authorization. Elias wiped a smear of blood, someone else's, not his, from his cheek. His eyes carried grief, but beneath it burned something older, deeper. You attacked me without cause, he said, voice steady. You intend to manufacture justification for an action you already regret. The commander paused. A tiny flinch, barely visible, betrayed uncertainty. But the order remained. Engage. The wardens charged. Elias moved. He slipped under the barrel of the first rifle, seized the warden's forearm, and redirected momentum into a brutal flip that sent the armored soldier crashing down. Before the next attacker closed the gap, Elias grabbed the fallen rifle, twisted it sideways, and smashed it against the ground to overload the plasma coil. The weapon detonated in a burst of concussive force, knocking 3 wardens off their feet. He pivoted, sliding behind a column as a barrage of kinetic rounds hammered where he had just stood. His left glove flickered as he activated the phase rift filament, a weapon he rarely used, not because it was dangerous, but because it reminded him of the man he used to be, the man he hated becoming. Blue threads of unstable energy unfurled between his fingers. He stepped out from cover and let the filament lash across the nearest warden's shield. The energy rippled, bypassing armor, jamming implants. The warden convulsed and collapsed. Another rushed him. Elias braced, absorbing the hit, then slammed his palm into the soldier's chest. A microburst of grav energy erupted point-blank, sending the armored behemoth skidding across the floor like a kicked crate. Above, terrified delegates watched from the balconies, pressing against retreating barriers. Some whispered frantically into comms. Others simply stared at the lone human fighting an army as if he had been crafted for nothing else. The wardens regrouped. They tightened formation. Their commander's voice thundered again. Full force. 3 shock cannons fired simultaneously. Elias sprinted along the edge of the disc, footsteps pounding as shockwaves obliterated marble behind him. He dove, rolled, and planted his boots against a support beam. Using the rebound, he vaulted high above the shock blasts. While airborne, he flicked 2 small metallic discs toward the ground. The discs shattered, releasing a burst of high-density smoke infused with sonic distortion. Warden staggered, disoriented. Their visors scrambled with static. Elias landed inside their broken formation. He didn't hesitate. A strike to the neck. A twist of the wrist. A sweeping kick. A palm thrust. Every move clean, controlled, and heartbreakingly efficient. The kind of efficiency that only came from someone who once swore he would never fight again. The commander roared and lunged. Elias pivoted aside, grabbing the towering alien by its armor plates and hurling it into a marble column. The structure cracked down the middle. Dust rained. The commander struggled to rise, sparking with damaged circuitry. Elias stepped closer, his expression shadowed. I told you. Stand. Down. The commander's visor flickered. You were supposed to be diplomatic. Elias's jaw clenched. Pain crept across his eyes, deep and human. Diplomacy requires trust. You broke that the moment you aimed a weapon at me. Before the commander could recover, a new voice echoed through the chamber, high-pitched, panicked. Stop. Stop, all of you. Stand down now. It was Counselor Lyra, a slender avian diplomat whose feathers were puffed in frantic distress. She swooped from the balcony, wings trembling as she landed near the wreckage. The wardens froze. Elias didn't. He remained ready, feet planted, every muscle coiled for another betrayal. Lyra raised both hands. Envoy Ward, please. The council did not authorize this attack. Someone acted independently. Someone wanted this. Elias's eyes narrowed. Wanted what? A massacre? No, Lyra whispered. A justification. Silence rippled through the chamber. Lyra gestured toward a set of private skyboxes high above. This wasn't the council. This was orchestrated by members of the syndicate bloc. They've been pushing for a preemptive strike on Earth for months. They sabotaged today's session to frame you. Elias's stomach tightened. And you let them? No. Lyra stepped closer, voice cracking. Most of us had no idea. What you see here is a hijacking of procedure, a direct violation of council law. The words dug into Elias like shards of ice. He had expected cowardice, expected fear. He hadn't expected corruption this deep. He glanced around at the unconscious wardens, at the shattered architecture, at the delegates staring in horrified awe. How many knew? He asked quietly. Lyra swallowed hard. Enough. The ache behind his ribs grew heavier. He thought of the people he lost, lives destroyed because someone else wanted a convenient excuse for war. He wasn't going to let that cycle repeat itself. Elias turned slowly, looking up as fresh images flickered across the holographic panels lining the chamber walls. Real-time footage. Unauthorized fleets mobilizing. Syndicate ships pushing toward human space. False transmissions being broadcast to justify aggression. It was a coordinated strike. The attack on him had been merely the opening move. Elias, Lyra whispered, voice trembling. If you don't leave now, they will kill you. They'll bring in the Praetorians next. He stared at the floor, fists tightening. Not out of fear. Out of grief. Out of fury held behind bone and breath. They already tried to kill me, he said softly. And they're about to learn why that was a mistake. He turned toward the exit. Where are you going? Lyra called. Elias didn't look back. To find whoever orchestrated this, he replied. And end it before they end thousands more. The corridor beyond the rotunda lay dim and silent, the polished obsidian walls reflecting only fragments of shattered lights behind him. Elias walked with measured strides, each step echoing with purpose rather than anger. A trail of smoke drifted from his torn sleeve, the micro-shield slowly recharging. The ache in his ribs pulsed steadily, but he pushed it aside. Pain was familiar, expected, controllable. Footsteps scurried behind him. Elias, wait. Lyra called, following with hesitant flutters of her wings. If you confront the syndicate bloc alone, they will deploy every asset they possess. You don't understand their reach. Elias stopped at the threshold of the ascension lift. The doors slid open with a soft chime. I understand exactly what they're willing to sacrifice, he said quietly. Including innocent lives. Lyra swallowed. You can still demand a formal investigation. And let them erase evidence? Silence witnesses? Deploy fleets. His voice softened, but the edge remained. No. This ends before they can bury it. The lift descended, its walls glowing with faint blue rings. As it carried him deeper into the council spire, Elias's reflection wavered across the mirrored panels. A scarred man. A grieving man. A man who had begged the galaxy for peace, and been answered with betrayal. The lift doors opened. Ahead lay the syndicate block's private command wing, sealed behind reinforced gates and guarded by elite sentinels. Elias rolled his shoulders, exhaled once, and stepped forward. I tried diplomacy, he murmured, pulling his coat tighter across his frame. Now they'll meet the man beneath the suit. And the spire trembled as he advanced into the dark.